I'm Connor Old, and welcome back to another episode of Old's Oscar Countdown. And this week, I'm going to be covering 5 takeaways from the Critics' Choice Awards that happened last night, how or if it will affect ultimately the Oscar race, the results of that award show, the speeches being televised. Ultimately, that matters in terms of the Oscar race. And this is the big week. On Friday, I'll be giving my predictions as to what I think will get nominated for the 2023 Oscars. Then I'm going to do a live reaction video on Tuesday. So we're really now into the sort of final stretch of the nominations. I've been doing a lot of research, a lot of homework. We're still going to wait on the BAFTA nominations. So that's going to be sort of the final thing that I take into account before making those final predictions. But before we jump into things, I just want to say that To Leslie is a small film with a giant heart. Andrea Riseborough gives the performance of the year, and Allison Janney, Marc Maron, Owen Teague, Andre Royo, and Stephen Root are all incredible. Please go find this gem. Directed by Michael Morris. So, just in terms of my overall performance, I got 14 out of 21, which wasn't super terrific, but it still lands me in the top 10% of all Gold Derby voters, so not as elite as my top 5% performances in both the Golden Globe nominations and predictions and my overall strong support overall historically with the Oscar nominations. But hey, top 10% overall of Gold Derby users, I'll still get that. Proud to say I got some outsider picks like screenplay for Everything Everywhere All at Once, or even editing for Everything Everywhere All at Once, but then missed in a couple categories. Like, I knew production design was going to be a little bit wonky. It went to Babylon instead of Elvis, which I almost thought of. So there's a couple of areas like that. Even the score, I thought maybe it would go to Tar too, so they sort of spread it around a little bit differently than I thought. But still, hey, top 10% of all predictors. That's why you come to this channel, for those accurate award season predictions. Now jumping into things, my first takeaway, it's going to be that I think all the main 4 acting races are pretty much locked up. After I was watching the award show, you look at something like supporting actor, and we don't even need to talk about that. That's pretty locked up. Just the fact that we have another emotional speech from Ke Quan, and then you have most likely both Banshees of Inisherin actors getting nominated, and then if that were to happen, there'll probably be a bit of a vote split for support from that movie. Everything Everywhere All at Once is a well-liked movie. He's a well-liked actor, giving these really terrific emotional speeches. He's going to win for Best Supporting Actor. I'm not really concerned about that. So he also won the Critics' Choice, so that's interesting. Then you look at a category like Best Lead Actress. I thought that with Cate Blanchett's win here, it was pretty solidified that I think she's going to win the Oscar. People thought that, and most people I think thought that Michelle Yeoh would win. I didn't. I predicted Cate, but I think a lot of people, based on Gold Derby experts, editors, whatnot, even betting odds, Michelle Yeoh was the favorite to win here. Even, I suggested maybe there would be a potential tie, but it went to Cate Blanchett. And if you have an awards group that loves Everything Everywhere All at Once so much, when you have an awards group like the Critics' Choice, who really absolutely loved this movie and gave it 14 nominations and gave it picture and editing and director and screenplay, they really, really loved it. The fact that they didn't give it, I think, really sort of is telling to Michelle Yeoh's greater chances. Cate Blanchett also had this, I don't care kind of a speech, which we've seen that sort of energy work well for actors like Frances McDormand in the past. So I think she's sort of, again, actually a positive energy from that speech that she gave, sort of a very unanimous, joyous kind of acceptance speech. And she just frankly gives a tour de force performance in Tar, which I think at the Oscars will be a well-liked movie, a very well-liked movie. I'm talking about director, screenplay, picture, big sort of awards. And Tar, where is it going to win? Most likely at least one award, the clearest one being that central performance of Cate Blanchett. So I think with Michelle Yeoh losing, I think really Cate Blanchett has locked this up for Best Lead Actress. Especially if Ke Quan is going to win for Best Supporting Actor, because then if you're a fan of Everything Everywhere All at Once and the actors, there's not necessarily a need to say, oh, I also want Michelle Yeoh to win, because you've got at least one in the bag, so maybe you give this one to Cate Blanchett. That's maybe how the voters may be thinking. But even still, regardless, I think Tar is still a super well-liked movie, and in part because of that terrific performance from Cate at that center. So I think Best Lead Actress is kind of locked up too. Then you think of Supporting Actress, I predicted Angela Bassett here in this category because I thought there wasn't any clarity in Best Supporting Actress. No one really knew who the frontrunner was, so it wasn't an upset that Angela Bassett won. I think the Globes just crowned her and said, we like Angela Bassett. This movie's pretty great. She's great in it. Let's give her due and her Oscar. And I think a lot of people, a lot of critics watch that and go like, okay, I guess we're going to go with Angela Bassett. So her win here, I think, sort of showed us and solidified the fact that she's at the very least a front runner to win in this category. And even, performance like Black Panther getting in at PGA, sort of overperforming. And so that movie clearly is well liked, winning costume design here at Critics' Choice. So I think it's going to get multiple technical awards. And I do think Angela Bassett has enough support just as an actress in general to get the win. I'm surprised, frankly, because this is a Marvel movie performance. Didn't think that would happen. But I think supporting actress then is sort of locked up with Angela Bassett. I don't really see a number two. Carrie Condon, kind of. There's no real sort of number two support unless someone like a Michelle Williams maybe slips to supporting. Hard to say. But then you look at the best lead actor category, and it was sort of a three-way race for a bit there. Austin Butler, Elvis, Colin Farrell for The Banshees of Inisherin. But the fact that Brendan Fraser won here for The Whale, in which The Whale had very few nominations. It did actually pretty poorly when it came to the nominations at Critics' Choice, whereas The Banshees of Inisherin did quite well and was a well-liked movie. So if Colin Farrell were to win any war, it would be here. And then when you see Brendan Fraser's speech, and he's so emotional, he's breaking down almost, and then he gets this amazing standing ovation, clap at the end of the speech. It's just felt like, as soon as I was watching it, I remember going, oh, he's winning the Oscar. He's getting a standing ovation. People love him. It just sort of seemed like this clear sort of unfolding. We're like, oh, tonight we solidified those 4 acting races. Now, that's not to say that's going to happen. We have to see, of course, with Oscar nominations and whatnot, but it did sort of feel, at least when you're watching it, like this is going to be the Oscar for. This kind of makes sense. This is the front runners, but then maybe a little bit of a surprise with Angela Bassett in the supporting categories. But this is what we thought at the beginning. I think ultimately that's what's going to happen. So I think the sort of takeaway number 1 was that I think these 4 acting races may be locked up. Then my second takeaway is that Everything Everywhere All at Once is the clear frontrunner for me. I know a lot of people have been talking about The Banshees of Inisherin and The Fabelmans and Everything Everywhere All at Once being in this 3-way race, but on certain betting sites and whatnot, Everything Everywhere All at Once is actually in 3rd place. But for me, I think it is the clear frontrunner to win. When we look at past Best Picture winners, they almost always have a screenplay award win associated with a Best Picture win, or they'll have a screenplay and an acting award win. I mean, you look at movies like Coda last year, supporting actor win, screenplay win, gets in for picture. Moonlight did the same thing, supporting actor, screenplay, picture. Green Book did the same thing, supporting actor, screenplay, picture. And then even look at movies like Spotlight, which gets in for screenplay and then picture. Or Parasite, with screenplay and then picture. There's just this clear kind of a path between those 2 things. And guess what? Everything Everywhere All at Once has a supporting actor pretty much locked down, and I think at least has a 50-50 shot for original screenplay. I actually think it's a frontrunner. I actually think it's going to win. And that's just the traditional path to win for Best Picture. We continually see this over and over again, this pattern. And then when you compare it to the other sort of 2 movies, The Fabelmans, what does that have? It's winning no technical awards. It's getting snubbed in certain shortlists at some of these guilds. So it's not going to win score and then director and then picture. It's not going to win cinematography and then director and then picture. You're essentially saying if you think The Fabelmans is going to win, is that either Michelle Williams is going to go in supporting actress and she's going to win there, and then it's going to win director and picture. But right now, at least from what we know, you're saying it's going to win director and then picture, which is kind of rare and historically not necessarily the most accurate. Because when we look at movies like The Shape of Water, which win for picture without a screenplay win, well, it also has technical awards. It wins for director, but then it also wins for production design. It also wins for score. It has that technical support. The Fabelmans doesn't have that right now. So right now, its path for Best Picture for The Fabelmans is actually kind of hard to see. Then I look at a movie like The Banshees of Inisherin, the supposed sort of other contender, and that could win screenplay and then eventually picture. But right now, I still think it's the sort of number 2 in the screenplay category. We see the Oscars oftentimes try to reward the creative type of a movie versus the dialogue-focused movie. I've talked about this in the past, and Everything Everywhere All at Once is this creative, unique way of telling a story versus just the sort of witty dialogue of something like The Banshees of Inisherin. Yes, I'm sort of simplifying the arguments, but I do think Everything Everywhere All at Once is more of an Oscars type of a winner for Best Original Screenplay. And then what else? So, if you're predicting The Banshees of Inisherin, you're predicting a Spotlight type win of getting in for screenplay and then picture. That was kind of a surprising win in which we really did have a 3-way race between that, The Big Short, and The Revenant. This year, though, right now, I am sort of comfortable in saying my number 2 takeaway is that Everything Everywhere All at Once, with its terrific performance here, in director overperforming in editing, that it is the clear frontrunner, at least to me, to win Best Picture at the Oscars. Then my third takeaway is that Glass Onion is still dead. I think I wouldn't have even thought of this as a takeaway, but saw people on Twitter and on Reddit and things like that start asking questions like, oh, is Glass Onion back? Will Glass Onion, I've seen certain people saying, oh, now Glass Onion is a lock to get nominated for Best Picture because it won Best Comedy Film here and Best Ensemble. The Best Ensemble win was surprising, but the comedy film was not. We've seen movies like Crazy Rich Asians win over The Favorite. We've seen movies like Dolomite Is My Name win over Jojo Rabbit. This is not a situation where Everything Everywhere All at Once sort of got upset by Glass Onion. They usually like to go for the more comedic movie in Best Comedy Film rather than the movie they like the most. So that it makes sense for Glass Onion there. And then this is the Critics' Choice Awards. At the end of the day, you have to look at industry awards. SAG. Glass Onion didn't even get nominated for Ensemble. It didn't get nominated for anything at SAG. Missed for Janelle Monáe. PGA didn't get nominated at all for that top 10 lineup. So, those are industry awards in which real-life Oscar voters are voting on those awards. So it's ridiculous to say, I think, oh, because it did well at Critics' Choice, now it's a lock to get nominated for Best Picture. I think it really doesn't change anything. I think the guilds have shown us that there's a lack of support for that film, and I think it's going to get nominated for screenplay, but that's probably it. Glass Onion, even though it got a couple of interesting wins here tonight, I think the movie is still dead in terms of its larger Oscar chances. My fourth takeaway is that RRR has a strong potential to win an Oscar. I didn't think, I don't think it's going to get nominated for Best Picture. It could, I don't think it's going to get nominated for Director, really anything else. Disappointed in those Oscar shortlists. That being said, song is a weird category. Sometimes we see songs like No Time to Die as the frontrunner early and wins everything. But then sometimes we've seen, Fight for You, the song from Judas and the Black Messiah, just surprise and win at the Oscars. It is such a weird category because we don't have these traditional kind of precursors that we can judge based on. It's kind of the Globes and Critics' Choice. Those are the big ones. And RRR's song Naatu Naatu has won in both those instances. And why I think it actually is the frontrunner still to win for Best Song over a Lady Gaga or a Rihanna is because we know that RRR, even though it's not being seen by a lot of people, it is being seen. I mean, people within Hollywood talk about how the movie is well appreciated and it's getting nominated at Golden Globe, it's getting nominated at Critics' Choice. People are seeing it. And if you see the film, well, then you know the sort of central importance of Naatu Naatu and what a sort of terrific musical break it is within the film versus a song like Lift Me Up by Rihanna, which, while great, is still an end credit song. At least Naatu Naatu is incorporated within the film. It's a musical number as part of RRR. So I think the more people that see RRR as it gets more of this award season traction will actually gain steam for Naatu Naatu. So the fact that it's actually been winning early on here, I think that Naatu Naatu can win for Best Original Song, and maybe its only nomination at the Oscars, but I think it can actually win in that category, sort of surprising some people who thought that maybe it won't even get nominated at all. And then my final takeaway from the night is that the Best Director race is far from a sure thing. I think a lot of us thought that Steven Spielberg had it sort of locked up. I remember even since TIFF, I thought, oh yeah, he's definitely winning Best Director here after winning the People's Choice Awards. Now, I'm not necessarily ready to say the Daniels are the frontrunner in this category. I actually still think it's Steven Spielberg. But you have to be honest with yourself. If you're predicting Steven Spielberg to win, you're essentially saying, two things. You're saying that it probably will only win for Spielberg for director, unless you think it's also going to win for picture, in which, that makes sense. But I think it's still possible to predict Spielberg for just director. But if you're doing that, then you're essentially going against historical trends. Jane Campion did that last year for The Power of the Dog. The only win of The Power of the Dog for the night was director. But before that, it was extremely rare. It really never happened until years before Jane Campion. So you're essentially going against historical precedent if you are predicting Steven Spielberg, assuming The Fabelmans is not going to win in any other categories. I'm still kind of fine with that because I do think he's well respected within the industry, particularly the Academy, and it's a very personal movie to him, and the Oscars usually like to spread the love, so they're going to want to give a big movie like The Fabelmans at least one big award. Director makes the most sense there, and then give say, a movie like Everything Everywhere All at Once, or The Banshees of Inisherin picture. But it is sort of interesting to say that, it'd be historically significant if you were to pick Steven Spielberg versus something like the Daniels, who make a little bit more sense in recent Oscar history, in which the director win also goes with the picture win. In the case of Bong Joon-ho or Guillermo del Toro or Chloe Zhao, we've seen the director wins also win for picture in recent years. And ultimately, Steven Spielberg didn't win here. And you could say, oh, they love Everything Everywhere All at Once. They give it 14 nominations. Yeah, but The Fabelmans got 11 nominations. They still really like The Fabelmans, and they didn't give it any big award. The Oscars are, of course, a little bit different than the Critics' Choice. So Spielberg, I still think, is, the front runner, but it would be foolish to say that he's definitely going to win. He's 100% of a lock. I think for me, the way I'm looking at it is I'm going to put Spielberg in my predictions right now. But if Oscar nominations come out and Fabelmans underperforms, then I'm worried for Spielberg. But if it overperforms, like The Power of the Dog did last year, if it gets in for Judd Hirsch, if it gets in even for something like a production design or costume design or something like that, and sort of surprises, I'd be a little bit more willing to say, okay, it's actually going to win for Best Director for Steven Spielberg. But right now, after Critics' Choice and Daniel's winning, I think that this is not a lock for Spielberg, and it's definitely a race between Daniels and Steven Spielberg. But that's been it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you comment below. Let me know your thoughts on the Critics' Choice Awards. And stay tuned. Subscribe to the channel. Later this week, Friday, I will be giving my Oscar nominations predictions, the big video in all 23 categories, doing analysis and everything, why I picked one over the other. That's my big video I do every year. The nominations, even more so than the wins, are just a little bit more fun because there's so many different possibilities. That's, something I'm always looking forward to. But that's about it. Until next time. Stay tuned.